I'm thrilled to welcome our next guest. This is Robin Fay Massie, who I actually knew vaguely back in my Baltimore years, many years ago. But I recently heard her speaking on the Viola centric podcast and thought we definitely have to have her here as a guest. Um, Robin is based now in Atlanta, Georgia, even though she was in the Baltimore, Maryland area for many years. She's performed with the Philadelphia Orchestra, National Symphony Orchestra, and was assistant principal with Delaware Symphony and principal viola with the Black Pearl Chamber Orchestra. She's the founder and executive director of Musicians of Mercy, which I'm sure she'll tell us more about. And then, interestingly enough, now she's also an NICU nurse in Atlanta, Georgia. So I thought she would be the perfect person to come and speak to us for our dual degree majors. We have so many students with multiple interests here that are trying to combine their love of music with another outside field as well. And I'm sure many of them are wrestling with, how do I find my calling, my significance, my purpose in life, and how do I continue my passion for music as well as these other interests and the practicality side too with I want to make sure that I'm employable and I have this amount of money for the standard of living that I want in future years. So anyway, as they're wrestling with all of these things, we wanted to hear from you. I wonder if you can just tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and how did you get into music in the first place?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Viola power. I am delighted to be here. And Lauren, I have to thank you so much. Oh, thanks, Lauren. Thank you for inviting me. This is an extremely exhilarating experience. I feel like 2 years ago when we would have Zoom appointments, it seemed awkward and impersonal. And at this point, I think we're all just so happy to see faces that it doesn't feel impersonal. It feels exciting. And what's most exciting to me is to speak to all of you as you literally stand on the precipice of the rest of your life. You know, you think of your college years and wow, this is like the end of scholastic training, perhaps. It's really not, but you think it is at the time. And then you think, I am all of a sudden going into the next phase of my life, my career. And what is that? And with all humility, I'm here to tell you that the beginning of your life is just a small portion. This phase of your life is a small portion of the rest of your life. You will always be changing. You will always be searching for deeper meaning in what you do. Um, and what you do ultimately is the result of who you are. So as long as you cultivate who you are, the things that you love, the things that you believe, your values, those things will spill out into a career that is both meaningful and impactful, both for you and for your community. So, um, with all of that being said, a little bit of background about me. I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My family background is Jamaican. And my father's family largely resides in Pittsburgh. So that kind of cultural heritage really flavored my upbringing. Um, However, the greater part of my life was spent in Maryland, between Baltimore and DC, in a small city called Columbia, which was designed as a planned community, actually planned for the idea of um, integration, racial harmony, and it's kind of utopian in its genesis, but it also flavored a lot of who I am. Um, Although I would say I grew up in a neighborhood that was similar to that in Pittsburgh as well. So, although it wasn't planned. So the idea of inclusivity and diversity and multiculturalism and love and acceptance, that's always been a part of who I am. Um, with all of that, I started playing the violin when I was 8, and I was in elementary school. Like many violists, sometimes we find our way to the violin until the viola calls you. I was a child at 5 when I heard a piano and decided I want to play that. And I was blessed that I have parents who didn't take that as, tinkering or disorganized noise, that they actually saw that I had an interest in creating sound. Um, and that kind of support was really vital for me as a young artist. So they did whatever they could, sacrificed so that I could start private lessons on piano, which led to violin. So I fell in love with that sound in elementary school. And in high school, I started on the viola. My mentor, and I intentionally say the word mentor, not private teacher, because he was a mentor to me. Um, he had an old viola laying around in his house that no one was playing, and he saw the way I was trying to extract sound out of my violin and heard the type of sound, the depth of sound that I was digging for, I would say. Um, and he thought, maybe Robin might like the viola. And it turns out it was absolutely a perfect match. It was, love at first stroke, I would say. Fell in love with the sound world of the viola, the sonority, the richness, um, the complexity. Um, and that was the beginning of my career, really. I was 14 and I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Um, as a point of departure, I will also say, and it's not really a point of departure, but when I was 4, I said, I want to be a nurse. And I was talking to my parents about that. I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew I loved people. So I went into college, which I'll talk about later, my undergraduate, knowing I love medicine, I love music. So I went in as a double major in biology and viola performance. Um, Halfway through that time, I decided to focus primarily on music and graduated with my bachelor of music. Um, I circled back around later and achieved my nursing degree and started working as a nurse simultaneously. So I'll talk more about that later, but the point of what I'm saying is that music and nursing were kind of loves of mine from the very beginning. I knew those were written on my heart. I personally uh, chose to pursue music before completely uh, signing over to medicine, but it was always on my heart. So the reason why I say that is the things that are important to you are there on purpose and they're part of your purpose. So with all that, I am so happy to be here and thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Um, can you tell us some about your career as a violist? Then you did undergraduate and grad school in viola, and what kinds of things were you doing professionally before you went back and decided to become a nurse?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think music is something that many of you are probably familiar with this, but it just kind of draws you in. You end up working before you know that you're working because you're performing for audiences, maybe not earning an income at first, but you're really cultivating the art of performance. Um, And in order to be able to perform, you have to be able to teach. You have to be able to teach yourself. So there's such an importance that should be placed on the value of education, not just in terms of going to school and receiving a degree, but how do I learn? How do I learn best? How do I teach myself so that I can teach someone else, pass on this amazing art form? Um, and none of us would be sitting here if we didn't have a teacher. Um, I've been very blessed that I've had great teachers who I call mentors because they are still a part of my life and they cared about the whole person before I had my viola on my shoulder. They cared about me. So that's really important. Um, I did my undergraduate degree at University of Maryland, and I studied with Daniel Foster, who's the principal of National Symphony. Um, and quite honestly, he kicked my tail, and that was great. I needed that because you always need the type of teacher who you don't want. And I will say, I wanted someone who would be very, I guess, emotionally connected to me, someone who would, really kind of uh, feed into that side of me. And he was the opposite. He was very cut and dry. He's very clinical. He's a perfectionist to a T. And that's exactly what I needed. I got one compliment in 4 years. And I guarantee you that I reveled in that for 2 minutes. And then he said exactly what I needed to hear. He said, don't rest on your laurels. That was great. Go back and finish the work. I was like, what? So you we work in a field that can be subjective, that can be judgmental. You have to learn how to know when you're doing something well and when you're not, and who to go to for help. So that was the first lesson for me, that he really instilled that drive for excellence, that hunger for excellence, that it's never good enough. You can always fix something, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be authentic. It has to have a voice, and you have to have the foundation in order to create that authentic voice. So that's where technique is vital in performance. Um, so after those 4 years, I went to New England Conservatory, and that was another proving ground for me, because coming out of a liberal arts school, large liberal arts school, and going into a very small and very focused conservatory with students who were, some were prodigious, some were, of course, very hardworking. Um, some had been playing their instruments from the age of, you know, 2.5, whatever. And here I am, this friendly, happy person from University of Maryland, and just ready to say hi to everybody. And the first question I get when I walk through the doors, how did you get here? What what does that mean? What do you mean? How did I get here? I got here the same way you did. I auditioned. That the way I was met with that kind of it was kind of an underlying hostility, sort of painted that time in my life, where for the first time I didn't feel necessarily welcomed or celebrated. And I think that's important too, as an artist, to go through a period where you're walking in a wilderness and you don't know where it's headed. You don't know if anyone is necessarily going to support you or hear your voice. And what I learned in that period was my voice that I was given is my gift. Anyone who contributes to that voice is an asset to me. Um, and I can be an asset to wherever I am by being true to my voice and working as hard as I can to cultivate that voice with clarity and depth, and experience. And from there, I went to Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore, and finished up with a graduate performance diploma in viola performance. And from there, the day before graduation was when I won my first job with the Honolulu Symphony. So, you know, coming out of school and being thrust into the work environment is very tough. But I will say that everything that you do in school prepares you for the rest of the world. The most important degree that I am still receiving right now is from the School of Hard Knocks, because that's where you really learn when the answer is not always yes, when uh, you're told that you can't have a job because of XYZ, or you're not qualified, it just makes you work harder. Um, so school is just the beginning. Working and the relationships that you cultivate in school and after school help to set off a career and a life that is meaningful and fulfilling. Um, for you and for everyone who works with you. So that's how I got my start. And from there, a lot of wonderful opportunities came and are still coming. And I'm just grateful. The most important thing about this life is being grateful for everything.
That's great. Can you tell us some about your Musicians of Mercy organization, how it got started, and the kinds of work you've done through that group?
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who are not aware, in 2012, there was a tragic natural disaster in Haiti. Um, Haiti, being where it is situated, is oftentimes victim to many natural disasters, but um, this particular earthquake was extremely destructive, and it ended up being kind of a catalyst for me, spiritually, musically, artistically, professionally. Um, I was watching what was happening on the news, and like as we all do, and at that point in my life, at that moment, it became a watershed moment where I sat there and I just felt furious. Like, I'm looking at my brothers and sisters who are overseas. I can't reach out. I can't bring them into my home. I can't feed anybody. I can't clothe anybody. And this is a real, this was a visceral reaction that I was having to what was going on. And I felt helpless. And I felt convicted that I'm here in the United States where there are people in my community who can't eat, who don't have clothes, who don't have a roof over their head. And I'm looking at people who are, miles and miles away, who have even less than that. And what can I do? And I literally sat at the kitchen table. What can I do to make this better? What can I do to make anything better? I have a viola in my hand. I have no money in my pocket. Um, you know, I just felt angry that I felt so privileged. And I think that's something that we all wrestle with at some point in our life, not necessarily for that reason or in that way, but I felt the need to sit down and look at my life and look at my priorities and say, it has to be something more that I can do while I'm here on this side of eternity with my life, with my gifts. Um, and I sat down and I emailed as many musicians as I know. And I said, I don't know anything. I don't have any sense of business. I don't have any sense of, building an organization. That wasn't even what I was thinking. At the time, I was thinking, what can I do? I know how to create a concert. I know how to present a concert. That's what I do for a living. Maybe if I gather as many musician friends as I have in one place, we can present a concert and send proceeds to help people. And that is the beginning of Musicians of Mercy. And mercy for me is about sacrifice. Mercy is about love. Um, Mercy is about giving of yourself selflessly. Um, and that was the beginning of me finding greater purpose in my own existence. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about how much we raised. The first concert itself was 3 hours long. It was literally all of us playing drums and everything that we could think of to create a moment of connection with our community. And it was beautiful. And it was in an old church in Baltimore. And that's literally what Musicians of Mercy is. It's a grassroots effort of just friends getting together making music for the sense of raising awareness or funds for various humanitarian causes. Um, and it's nothing more sophisticated or complex than that. It was a bridge in my life um, where I realized that I'm not what I do. What I do is a reflection of who I am. And whatever I do, I want it to have meaning. Um, and that's, that's not to say that people who don't, you know, do, you know, benefit concerts or whatever their endeavor is. That doesn't mean that what you're doing doesn't have meaning. I am challenging everybody, including myself, to do everything that you do with an idea that I have to be doing this for a bigger reason, not just to do it. There's always purpose in what you do, and every gift that you have is tied into why you're here and what you can contribute into the fabric of society.
That's really beautiful. Um, can we segue into talking about going into nursing then? I know it's not, it seems like a non sequitur, but how then did you make the decision to go back to school and that this would be your new thing?
Well, I really feel like um, I don't think that I recreated myself. I think other people observing me thought that it was a new endeavor for me. But I will say that I've always been a nurse because I've always been concerned about healing. Um, I've always been concerned about how someone is doing from the inside. So going back to school, while it was really frightening, I didn't lose a sense of my purpose or who I am. It was more about, oh, thank you, Thaddeus. It was more about embracing fully who I am and allowing that to guide me in the decisions that I made for my life. Um, I was married, and it was if I hope it's not too personal, but I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I was going through a very difficult marriage that was actually abusive. My husband was struggling with alcoholism, and that became a very painful part of my story that um, I wasn't uh, I wasn't shy about sharing with people, and I never am because I believe that by connecting through pain, that's where we get to the stuff that we're all created from. But um, that marriage really caused me to sit again in reflection and look at my life and say, what can I do to feed my soul? What can I do to address the unanswered questions that I have been wrestling with in my life? And I saw this flyer for my local community college. And it came in the mail that day, and it sounds silly, but the tagline said you can get there from here. And that's where I was. Where am I? I'm stuck. I feel stuck. I'm in a relationship that's hurtful and painful. I love that I'm making music, but when I was 4, I said I wanted to be a nurse, and I never did that. I never had the chance to do that. And now I'm taking care of someone who's hurting deeply, and I'm hurting, and I need a change. I need to do something. I need to do something. And I saw you can get there from here, and I said, you know what? I always wanted to do this. Why don't I just try? I'm scared, but I'll try. And
Great.
it I went to the school and I started looking at my credit hours, and I had a lot of credits because I was the double major. Um, so I was literally maybe a few prerequisites away from being able to get into nursing school, which is actually quite competitive, this particular program. Um, and I decided to just go for it. I resigned from Delaware Symphony, which was very sad. Um, but I did it knowing that I had to protect my time. I had to protect my mental space because I knew I would need to study, and I was entering something where I was a novice. Um, I knew that putting all of the miles on my car that I was putting on my car would not be beneficial to me being very successful um, as I, embraced a new endeavor. And that being said, all through nursing school, I was still playing gigs all the time. I was still practicing hours a day. I was never unprepared for a performance. Um, I really believe that I'd rather not sleep and study for this exam and prepare for this gig than show up unprepared. And that's just who I am. But that's really what it takes to do anything that you care about. You put your foot in it, right? So I'd be, taking a bus up to New York for a gig, and I'm studying my nursing stuff the whole way. And I'm studying backstage right before I walk out on stage because I have an exam the next day and I need to get back. And that's not very sexy to be, to be on a bus studying. But hey, you do what you gotta do. Um, I bumped my head many times. I didn't pass every exam, but I always said nobody can out heart me. I might not be an A student all the time, but nobody is going to put more heart into it than I am. And I even say that even about Viola. So music and nursing are the same. I'm the same person. I inject the same amount of joy and dedication and sacrifice and listening, all of the skills that are essential to being an artist, being compassionate and being sensitive to know how someone is feeling, to hear someone, to see someone. All of that is the same in nursing. So I didn't take a step away from what I do. It was merely an expansion of the spectrum of who I am. And I'm blessed to be able to live within my purpose, doing two things that happen to earn an income. But for me, it's not about the income, although that's important. It's about being true to my assignment.
That's really good. I wonder what your advice is specifically for our students who are embarking on the dual degree career. I have several people in viola studios specifically who are becoming upperclassmen, and one is planning to do med school. The other one is already a successful pilot, but he's planning to, fly planes. I have another that's studying finance, another one that's doing environmental sustainability studies. Anyway, we have a broad spectrum of people just in the viola studio specifically, and I'll speak for them. I'm sure they are all wrestling with the idea of, oh, now I've taken music to this level. How can I continue to find ways to perform and be creative while I'm, busy in med school, that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Congratulations to all of you. I just want to say you all are amazing, and you're blessed to have an awesome professor here who is allowing you to have the freedom of thought, the agility of thought that I can be something other than what I thought I was, you know? The idea that I am a violist is very suffocating. I don't even call myself a musician. I call myself an artist because I am in the business of creating, period. It happens to be sound, that's my medium, and the viola happens to be my paintbrush, but I still perform on the violin. I still sing if I have to on a gig. When I'm with my patients, I sing to my patients. I extrapolate my, rhythmic uh, training, I'll say, when I am, doing compressions if I have to on a patient. So everything that you do lends itself to the new phase of where you are. It's not inglorious to do many things because the more you do, the more exposure you have, the more experience you bring to each situation, and the more compassion you can have for the people around you who may be, struggling with something new. Um, I'd say my best piece of advice is to go for every opportunity that presents itself where you can learn. Anything that terrifies you is something you should probably explore because that's where you learn. Um, we always say that change comes outside of comfort zones, and it's very true. Um, I can say this is my in my nursing journey, this is my third permutation, perhaps. I started in the emergency room right before COVID. I had no idea that I was entering the workforce as a nurse on the heels of a pandemic. I had no idea. Um, and I could have said at that point, I'm out of here, like, what is this? But I continue to dig in. And thank God I haven't been sick. I haven't even had a cold in years. Um, I worked so hard, that was a scary environment to start in because there's stress all around you. Um, but I learned so much from my patients, and I still do. From there, I worked in oncology, and I call my patients, they're my heroes and my sheroes because they are fighting battles that a lot of us think are losing. But really, to see someone struggle is to see someone winning. And that's what I suggest for each of you. The more you struggle, the more you dig in, the more you throw caution to the wind in a calculated manner, of course. Um, the more you open yourself up to making meaningful connections with people who you may not have met otherwise, who can have a wonderful impact on you. And then you get to pass that on. So, being open to new opportunities, open to new relationships, and really cultivating those relationships as you cultivate your gift. You don't have to, you may not have as much time to spend, maybe like, you know, the 4, 5, 6 hours that I used to spend on my viola every day have been truncated to maybe one, you know. But guess what? I put my foot in that 1 hour. And even if I don't have a performance on the book, I still play. I still play because sometimes just picking up your instrument and playing is healing for you as you're going through a new change, something that's unfamiliar. I consider I've been a nurse since 2018, and on paper, that's experience. I feel like a baby because I feel like I'm Suzuki Book 3 in my mind. You know, I've been a violist my entire life, and I'm still a novice because you're always a student. So imagine how I feel as a nurse. I feel extremely insecure at times. The thing that guides me is my heart. Nobody has my heart. And I know that if I know nothing else, I can hold someone's hand and just be present. So I say that to you, I pass that to you, hoping that it might bless some of you to know that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to do something that's unfamiliar as long as you give all of your effort to that effort so that you can be the best that you can be with the gifts that you have. You don't have to be like anyone else. You do the best that you can do within your capacity. And I promise you, you will make a big, big splash wherever you are because the world needs you, you, your voice.
It's great. I wonder, practically, do you have any advice for balance and even time management? So you're a mom, you're also a daughter, you just moved to a new city, you have a new job, and you're still trying to get some quality time with, I gotta say, Babalu. That's the best viola name ever. So that's the name of her instrument, by the way.
Babalu. So my viola's name is Babalu, and violas are jealous creatures. He gets very jealous when I don't spend enough time with him. I actually was so happy because yesterday I was just playing all day, just enjoying making sound, working on some stuff. But the previous 3 nights I was working night shift, night shift, night shift. So I was exhausted. I didn't even pick him up. So work-life balance is very important, especially with music. I mean, music is a jealous mistress. Um, it's something that requires muscle memory, as you know. Um, it requires introspection and dedication that some careers just don't require that level of dedication and vulnerability, quite honestly. Um, so for me, it's very important to wake up each morning hitting the reset button with intention. I like to say that I paint my day as a rainbow. So each day is a rainbow. And I wake up very early. I usually get up around 4:30 or 5, and that's when I start my day. I carve out, 2 hours to myself for edification. So that includes, some prayer, meditation, reading, and exercise, sweat equity, as I call it. And then I wake my daughter up. She has school, so I have to get her together. And that's a whole other hour out of my time. And then if I'm working nights, that means shortly thereafter, I have to try to grab 4 hours of sleep so that I have some sense on the night shift to take care of people. Um, if I am not working a night shift, then I have some more time. And that time usually goes to other things that inspire me, like making music or being silly and dancing. Like yesterday, I just spent an hour and I just turn on some music and dance. It's so important to not take yourself too seriously at times because life is intense. Um, I always try to carve out at least an hour to reach out to people, friends, family, check on your peoples. As we know, this is a time that has been very, um, very detrimental. A lot of people are anxious, a lot of people are depressed, um, a lot of people are hurting, and I've seen a lot of pain in the last 2 years. I've seen a lot of death in the last 2 years um, firsthand. And I will say one of the biggest things that I realized is that when you want to do something, do it. Don't even hesitate, because if you have a moment where your heart says, I want to do something, I want to go somewhere, I want to visit someone, do it while you have time. So many of my cancer patients, especially, um, you know, have said, I wish I had done this. I have all this money sitting in the bank. I don't have the luxury of saying that, but they did. You know, I have this money sitting here and I never used it. It's just there. What am I going to do with it? So, what do we do with the time that we have? It's time for me is a construct. It's more about moments. What moments? How do I choose to spend each moment of each day? And I plan a little bit in the morning and I structure my day so that if I'm working that day, I make sure I do something that is going to feed my soul, that's inspiring. So I might just spend an hour as I'm jogging or doing my yoga. I'm listening to music. because that inspires me, that feeds me, so that I call that soul food. I have soul food in my belly so that when I go out, I'm full. I have to be full to go out into the world and meet other people and to serve in whatever capacity I'm serving, whether I'm a lawyer or a janitor, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do whatever I do, but I have to have a full stomach in order to work.
That's great. How do you, you're such a joyful, uh, joyful spirit. And you talk about having your yellow bubble. Um, how do you keep from taking all the stress of critical illness and just sad situations, death at work? How do you keep from carrying that around with you? Is your viola something that helps you process that, or is it an ongoing battle?
I would say both, I think all of us walk around with pain. Like if I were to say, raise your hand if you have pain, I think we would all, yeah, we would all raise our hands because we all have a degree of pain. But that's what connects each of us. And when we are able to be vulnerable enough with ourselves to be able to acknowledge that and work through it, then I can say, hey, Brandon, I feel the same way. Or, hey, Samuel, I'm going through this too. I can look at each person and say, I might not go through exactly what you're going through, but I know what it is to be in pain. Um, and so, like Lauren was saying, I walk in what I call my happy yellow bubble. Yellow is my favorite color. It's happy, it's sunshine, it's, you know, it's warm, it's inviting, it invites people in. So I like to say that it's a semi-permeable membrane. I can bring people into my bubble and it can bend, it's malleable, it's pliable, but I can also push you out. If you're attacking me or it's painful, I can say enough, that's it. And that's been a process for me to learn because I've always been, since I was little, I'm a hugger. I like to bring people in. Um, and one of the first things my mom used to say to me as a kid was, you can't bring everyone into your stomach. And that was just a Jamaican ism, a way of saying, you have to protect your heart too. So, for me, it's important to continue to be myself. If I'm in a situation, even if it's sad, I'm gonna cry. you know, when I Even when I perform on stage, if something touches me, I'm crying. One of the most influential concerts that I played, I was 17 years old. This is where I decided I'm going to be an artist. I cried through the whole concert because I knew this is what this is my soul. This is who I am. Um, this is what I am. So it's never a bad thing to take pain with you. I take it home. I come home, I think about my patients. I wake up in the middle of the night and I worry about a specific patient. Um, some of my adult patients I'm still in touch with. Of course, my little guys who I'm working with now, they can't talk. But I think about them and I worry about them. And that's okay. I It's okay because I try to find healthy ways to continue to feed myself. And that includes, all of the self-care, the reading, the yoga, the, time spent listening to music, connecting with those I love, not isolating myself, um, because that's what makes me human. So I would say that's how I try to manage my own pain as well as other people's pain.
That's really good. I guess the last thing I had down, I just shared our meta strategy with you just for fun, specifically to see what you wanted to say about just being an artist, functioning as a catalyst for change, for equity on the local and the global levels. I thought you might be good to speak to that sort of overall intention we have in the College of Arts.
absolutely. I feel ill-equipped and equipped at the same time to speak on that, because I don't consider myself, a celebrity or a person worthy of note. I consider myself this big. I'm very small, but very small ripples are what create waves. So my specific intention in everything that I do is to do whatever I can with as much love as I can. And as simple as that sounds, it's not always easy. Certainly not in 2021 when we're in the midst of a pandemic and there's a lot of inequity. I happened to move to Georgia, which is, espouses a lot of uh, cultural values and historical values that rub against the grain of my own sense of humanity and self. Um, and I've had to learn to gracefully move through this space. And I moved here in a season where I was able to vote in the election, which to me was absolutely a privilege and a gift to be able to vote at this time in history. So that's another little way that I was able to use my voice and that we all are able to use our voice here in the United States. Um, on a local level, uh, not even speaking politically, but how do I interact with people around me? We're walking around, all of us have like this much of our faces covered a lot of times. Um, but guess what? I can still see you. I can still tell that you're smiling. I can look at Pamela and say, oh, Pamela has glasses. Oh, hi, you're so cute. I see your eyes. I love your hair. I can still see you. So just because we're wearing a mask doesn't mean I can't see you. And it doesn't mean that I'm invisible. You know, I think we've all learned to sort of navigate facial expressions, you know? um, I can sit with a patient and they know that I care because even with the mask, you can still see tears in my eyes. Even with gloves on my hand, I'm still holding your hand. Sometimes I might even go like this, boop, that's me, I'm a person. So I think it's important for us to take off the mask, like take it off, whether it's literally or figuratively. Let's take off our masks. Let's be human together so that we can get through this difficult period as a unit and really as a society. I think we've gotten away from the ideas of community, but just by being a good human and good in parentheses, what is really good? That's another existential question we can get into later, but be love. If you walk in love and it starts with the relationship that you have intrapersonally, then our interpersonal relationships can improve. Then we can be a better community and a better society. And we can actually create a better life for the next generation.
That's beautiful. I just because we're down to the last 11 minutes here, I'd love to open it up and let the students talk with you guys. With you, I want to put it on gallery. And can you guys turn on your videos and have a little chat with Miss Robin here? Just ask her any questions that you might have, having listened to all of that wonderful inspiration. Questions? It's fine to type in the chat too if you're shy about speaking up.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How many of you are afraid? I see Samuel, I see Brandon. Is anyone else like scared? I see Ashton, Spencer. I feel you. I feel you.
You're both places. That's funny.
Yeah, I'm scared too. I'm scared too. I think when we are not scared, that should be concerning, if I could say. Um, if I, as a musician, don't get nervous, there's probably a little, uh, there's probably something I didn't address that makes me feel that I'm big and bad, that I can just walk out on stage and not have some reverence for the people around me. You know, even as a nurse, if I walk into that room like I know everything, I don't know anything. So it's okay to be scared. That's what makes us continue to be hungry to work and to dig in. So thank you for sharing that, because I feel the same way.
I have a question. I was curious because just from the way you presented yourself as becoming a nurse, I perceive you to be a successful musician and just a professional career. Um, and I know just based on what you mentioned, like about studying for exams on the way to gigs and everything, and that you may not necessarily have passed all of them. There's obviously a degree of the amount of work affecting your performance in those categories. So um, I find that one of the hardest challenges right now is time management, just because we have the amount of things going on as well. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of not necessarily how you handle the time management, but I feel like the mental aspect of it is just as important of how you let it affect your mental state. So I was curious as to like throughout your education and um, performing life and then into your nursing career, um, were there times where it had you down horrendously, where you just felt like you weren't being successful because of the amount of things, or how did you handle that?
Samuel, Samuel, Samuel. That is an awesome question, and it's an ongoing struggle. I will say the first thing that I'll say is when I first decided to become a nurse, I started calling myself a nurse because I said, if I speak it, then it will be. That being said, I felt like I was cheating on my viola. I was like, ugh, I worked so hard. I have a job. Some people will never have a job, and that's real. Um, I wrestled with that. And I wrestled with the idea, which I think my ego also informed me, that um, I might not be able to perform with the same facility in the same amount of time. So if I want to get up and perform like a Hindemith sonata, it might take me twice as long as it used to, but that doesn't mean I can't do it. So I had to tell myself I can still do all of the things that I want to do. It may require a little bit more time, and that's where time management comes into play. I had to learn that certain things I just can't do. I literally was on every single gig. I'd say, yes, 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 because that's how we work. That's how you start working. That's how you garner, a fabric of support and professional um, opportunities. But for the first time in my life, I had to start saying no to gigs that were really attractive to me in the past because I have to sacrifice for this moment in time. you know so there are times when you have to weigh the options, and say, I guess I might not be on this gig, but guess what, I'm putting in work so that I can get this job, and maybe at that point when I have that job I can take time off from that job and take another gig that comes later. So it's a matter of being patient with yourself. Now, when I do recitals, I don't put stuff on that recital that I don't think I can work on and play very well. So that alters how I select my repertoire. I might sometimes I look, in my box and I'll say, oh my gosh, I performed this, that. That doesn't mean I'll never do it again. it might just mean I'm not going to do it right now. I might put down, Shostakovich, and I might pick up Bloch, or whatever, something that is a little bit more amenable for the time that I have, but I'm still going to put the same amount of heart, same amount of effort, the same amount of criticism into my process of preparing, so that I can still present something that reflects what I care about and who I am as an artist. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, because I never really considered that, the fact of maybe I'm spreading myself thin, or other than, oh, I am not succeeding because of my own value. Maybe, saying yes to one too many ensembles was a little bit of a mistake, so I'm going to think about that going forward into the next semesters and on, where, can I, allocate 100% to this without it comprising my own self. So thank you. I really appreciate your
Absolutely.
comments.
Thank you. I appreciate your question. And I'll even, if I could extend the metaphor to like dating or something, we can date 10 people, right? But are we going to really be our full selves with each of those people? Or are we going to be giving you this much? I'll give you that much. No, I'd rather date one person, or marry one person, and put my whole self in and then fail, than say, oh, I'm dating 10 people, but I don't remember your name. I don't know your name, So it's about, what do you want to give? If you want to give a little bit, then that's cool. Samuel, I already know you don't. So it's okay to say no to things. And it actually makes you more valuable if you say no, because then people think, oh, well, maybe I have to catch them on the flip side. Yup, you do, because I value myself and my time, and I don't want to bring anything that's less than excellent.
That's great. Probably have time for one more question before we wrap it up. That's really a wonderful answer.
That's a wonderful question. Samuel is on point.
All right. Well, we're being shy, I guess, but I hope everybody really enjoyed what she had to say. There's so many wonderful things to think about, and we did record it. If you want to listen again, lots of meat and content to the concepts that she talked about. But thank you so much for giving your time to speak to us. This is still kind of TBA, but I hope we're going to be having Robin here in person it was March or February. Anyway, on a Tuesday during the spring semester in March. I believe it was the 29th. So she'll be doing a viola masterclass and a recital when she visits here for real. But thank you so much for coming for our Viola Day, and to be continued, since we'll see you sometime this spring.
Yay! Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'll say, if you want to reach out to me, you can always reach out. Lauren has my contact info, but I'm on Facebook, Robin Fay Massie. I'm also on IG as @MercyMusicians. So you can always reach out and just rent or just say hi or whatever. I'm an open book, and I really believe in staying connected. So I'm really praying for each of you as you search for your careers, that you're doing what you love to do, absolutely love to do, no matter what it is. Just be true to who you are, and you're going to be an amazing success in this world.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Happy Viola Day!
All right.